Thank you, Superintendent, for being here today,
How are you, ma'am?
and to your leadership team as well. I have some questions regarding issues with information and policies regarding instances of police-involved shootings. Recently, COPA's Chief Administrator, Andrea Kirsten, sat before this committee and testified about the incident when Dexter Reed shot a police officer and officers returned fire, resulting in Reed's death. Ms. Kirsten testified her media statements were based not on officer statements, but on what was related to her agency on scene by a deputy chief. She mentioned that this deputy chief spoke to 4 out of the 5 officers and then related that information to her staff on scene, presumably because the 5th officer was being treated for having just been shot. Her words were, quote, information given to us by officers via the deputy chief. These are her quotes. She was quoted in that. She also stated, quote, that this is routinely how the Chicago Police Department cooperates with our agency. That's her. This is what she said. Crime scenes can be chaotic, especially when a police officer has been shot. The Incident Response Team, IRT, are highly qualified, trained, and certified investigators, unlike the staff at COPA. I repeat, unlike the staff at COPA, who lack this training and certification. COPA lacks this training and certification. Having COPA's info get out so quickly raises issues with overall public perception and makes IRT's job more difficult. My question here to you is, can you comment about Ms. Kirsten's assertion that this is routine and what steps the Chicago Police Department took in this specific instance and in general to ensure an accurate recounting of the events are made public?
So one of the things that I can tell you is that's not true. That's not common practice. The street deputy, because I've served as a street deputy on several occasions, one in the murder of Ella French, and a catastrophic injury to Officer Yanez. As the street deputy, your job is to make sure that everyone is following protocol. Public safety, to make sure that the public safety statement is given to the officers. Your job is to make sure that any information that the possibility that an offender is still on the loose, or if anyone is injured and needs medical attention, that's your responsibility. So your responsibility is to make sure that protocol is being followed properly. The responsibility of the street deputy is not to investigate what occurred. The officers at that point have rights, and there's going to be a full investigation. The reason that the street deputy is not to interview and ask questions about the investigation is because we never, as the Chicago Police Department, want to give off the appearance that we're guiding the officers. So any information, because now the tactical response report has to be done. And in that tactical response report that has to be completed, there is no narrative. And the reason that there's no narrative is because the street deputy who is going to approve that tactical response report doesn't ask questions about the investigation. Now, at some point, these officers are questioned by COPA. We should never put statements out about what the officers said based on third-party information. When we're looking at people who are out there on a regular basis making split-second decisions and having the time to come down from that, to be able to give a better account of what occurred, That should never happen immediately on the scene like that, because there has to be a full and proper investigation. So when we put out information that's third-party based or hearsay at this point, it's irresponsible because it affects the investigation and the outcome of the investigation. So what we shouldn't be doing is putting information out there in part based on third-party information that we have not proven at this point, to frame people's thoughts about what occurred. We want to know the facts. We want to know everything that occurred. And that's rather the officers acted appropriately, or they acted within policy, or they did not. We want nothing but the facts to come out in those situations.
So with that, my second question is, did the incident response team relay or compile any witness accounts or compiled video evidence to COPA or to the public? And if so, what discussions were had regarding its release or lack thereof? Like who is involved in that decision?
So here's what I'll tell you on my account. I believe in transparency, and I believe in transparency up front. Oftentimes we release videos without context, and that context kind of sets up the information so the layman can look at it and see the chain of events that occur. We want to be careful not to go too far in those situations because of legal ramifications. We want to be very careful in those situations. My thoughts around this is to get the information out to the public within 48 to 72 hours. What I can tell you is that our IRT team, and I cannot tell you what a great job they do at these police-involved shootings. When they arrive on the scene, how professional they are, their professional interaction with COPA, and the transparency is there. They're not hiding anything, and we see to that. There's body-worn camera footage that they collect. Nothing is manufactured, nothing is doctored. They do everything the way that it's supposed to be done, because that's what the public expects. And in a police-involved shooting, if it's within policy, the proof will come out. If it's not within policy, the proof will come out. We don't need to frame people's thoughts around it. So it's extremely important that we're very careful and we keep it aligned. So what I can tell you is that our IRT team put a video together within a 48-hour period just to show the chain of events. And there was a lot of information around the shooting prior to the video being released. What I'd like to do moving forward is, as a police department, be as transparent as possible to get information out to calm those fires. In this particular instance, we did put a video together. It was the first time that we had done something like this, but the video did not have any determinations about the shooting in it. It was simply a collage of the body cam footage to provide to the public. So what I will tell you is the leadership in this department right now, we're about transparency. We're about making sure that we educate the public on what we're doing. Because it was the first time that we had done this, I'm sure there was some concern around it, and we ultimately agreed that COPA would then put out the version of the video. So we did not do it, and it wasn't because we were unwilling to do it. I just believe moving forward, this is something that as a police department, if we're going to show transparency, that we have to do, but without framing the outcome of this shooting. It's irresponsible to do so, and it's dangerous, to be quite honest with you.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I know I have 10 seconds left, but if I may close, there's a reason that law enforcement often says that they cannot comment on ongoing investigations. There's a reason for that. It's not about who reports the information first. It should be about who is reporting it right. Because of the early framing of the Dexter Reed shooting, I personally witnessed many media reports that failed to even mention that a police officer was shot. I hope that as a body, we continue to question whether involvement of COPA in these instances have a net positive on public safety. Because it appears their lack of standards result in a narrative that makes a justified use of force appear suspect and creates an environment despite the transparency of CPD, where officers will be hurt or killed because they may hesitate to use force to save their own lives. With that, Mr. Chairman, I will take a round two.
All right,
Thank you.
Alderman. I think you raise a very good point in that. I don't know if we have to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but I do believe that everybody wants, I think, transparency. We also want to account for officer safety. And if a mistake was made by the head of the agency and what she did, that doesn't necessarily need to castigate the agency. We might need to make some adjustment in the personnel. But I don't know if we need to castigate the agency. I think that is a product that has come through a lot of conversations just in the council and as well as with the community. So I don't want to. I don't know if we necessarily want to, as I say, throw the baby out with the bathwater. But your point is well taken. I did have similar concerns as we had that conversation with COPA when they were here. So it does warrant further conversation. So Alderman Quinn.